Hey there, Leading Our Own Way family, you absolute legends. Welcome back. It's part 3 here on YouTube of Leading Our Own Way this week with Melissa Thomson. Well, today's episode takes a fascinating turn as Melissa shares her insights on teacher burnout, something I'm quite passionate about, and the impact of technology on the human connection. We're talking real solutions, authentic approaches, and the kind of leadership that makes a lasting difference. If you're just joining us on this journey though this week, please go back to part 1. I think you're in for a treat though, and don't forget to check out parts 1 and 2 to get the full story before tuning in today. It's very vital. Here's Melissa and myself. Enjoy.
And they know, they can see and feel and sense going to other schools when a teacher is just there for the pay packet. You know, he's used that language before. They're just there for their pay. Yeah. There's, you can feel the difference in their relationships, because that's at the heart of Steiner education, regardless of most of the teachers. They're all, all in it from that. Yeah.
I think that's how it would appear to the outside, but because I'm on the inside and I see teachers really working their asses off, they're scared to quit because they obviously need that pay packet. That's where it comes back to. But the hair's frazzled, the skin's looking old, the energy is not seeping out of them the way it used to, and that I do believe that's to the burnout. The department obviously puts a lot of pressure on the leadership, and then the leader tries to wring the towel out to get as much water out as they can, so it comes out onto the teachers. Teachers are not allowed to go to dentist appointment in the day. They can't just let them go for an hour and trust them to come back, or they have to make it up. People used to go on school camps for the love of the school camps. Now people are begging the teachers to go on school camp, and it's because that time, which I suppose we've been treated transactionally, so therefore we're going to treat them back transactionally. It never had to go in the direction it's going. And there's obviously angles and variables and nuances to all of this, with everything else that we mentioned before, the way they brought up devices, food, sleep, exercise. But then you throw in the mix from the other end of the department, and that's why schools are the way they are. And that's why you've got 65% of teachers trying to leave the industry. That's why you've got 50% of graduates in the first five of the career leaving. And I got those stats when I worked with them in the government level, when I was given an advisory role to the State Secretary of Education here in Victoria. So that's why I'm not in it, because I'm not willing to. Everything comes at a cost. If planning's meaningful, I'll plan. But I'm not creating presentations upon presentations taking hours when I'm spending 30 seconds on a slide. And that's just a very small part of all of this equation. There's other aspects to it, of course. Anyway, we've kind of gone off there. But I suppose...
No, but it's good for people to be aware, because it's really easy. I know, and we don't have to stay on this much longer, but the stigma... I know of teachers around teaching is that, they get 14 weeks off a year or whatever it is.
I know, yeah.
And it's just not like that. They're planning, they're continuously working, and they're not just at school for 6 hours a day. It's planning before and after, and then parent emails, and it's actually quite endless, even in a Steiner school. And, because of my wellbeing background, and just the love of these staff and seeing how much heart and soul they put into the kids. We cut back our staff meetings to once a fortnight for 1 hour.
Brilliant.
Because you don't have to just endlessly meet can you send an email instead? Like, value people's time, value their work-life balance. You want sustainability and people staying in their work longer. Give them space, give them a well day once a term to go and be able to go to a doctor's appointment rather than having to call in sick, So we put things like that wove that into our way of being as an organisation, where we value people and well-being.
That's it. Well-being starts from the point we wake up to the point we wake up. This is a 24-hour gift, yet I can't speak for other systems, but in the education system, for the children, it's an hour bringing a beautiful well-being program into the school. Those kids look at that as an hour away from everything, so they're just messing about anyway. There's no real purpose. We're spending $110,000 for one person to be allocated at every school, and they go around to each class. For me, that's the wrong way of doing well-being. They might go and do a bit of colour in that and talk about a relationship and do a role. it can be beautiful, but for me, that well-being is we bring back that curriculum, like I mentioned before. We then have space to deal with something in the moment, rather than just saying, "Well, we'll have this restorative chat for 5 minutes. Let's move on." That's not how it works. We've got to be there for these kids, and we need more time. We can fill in the gaps for the children who don't need to be involved in necessarily everything, but sometimes it's just nice to be present, and don't always have to be throwing content down their throats. But then same for the staff. We tick well-being off by doing a quick quiz before the meeting starts, or finishing off, throwing chocolate around the room. Oh, brilliant. Oh, we do a lunch. It's nice to do those things. That should be extra. That should be on top. That shouldn't be part of well-being. That's because it's the goodness of your heart. But wellness for me isn't doing a nice little quiz for team bonding. That should be there regardless. Well-being is, like you've just mentioned, not doing meetings for the sake of doing meetings, not mandatory filling these forms in because we just have to. We're going to go off on one there, and I'll probably get myself cancelled.
But it's an example of a system that's not working, and I guess that's what we're getting to through all of this is it doesn't work, and even all of the money that's being thrown at the education, we have the worst scores in English and math than ever before, actually. Yeah. And so there's all these processes, all this money, all this wasted resource, but the kids aren't actually learning any better. It's actually getting worse. And there's stats that prove that. So, things need to change.
we do. We need to revamp it. And
it's got to come from the individuals. It's got to come from the families and what they want, what they need, what they see for their children, what their vision is for their life. And, if you need to lean into systems, and we had to work within a system so we could access government funding and lean on this beautiful curriculum that's so rich, and then we make it your own.
Yeah. And then the children are not even coming to school. Like, they're not. Their brains are so racing these days. They're on devices till stupid o'clock.
Yeah.
Half the parents don't know. Half the parents don't care, maybe. I don't know. And some are just not educated in the sense of the what's the effects on the brain of these devices at this late of time, And these kids are... I have a lot of kids coming to say, "Oh, just Mr. White, I've got this, I've got that, so you have to treat me differently." Well, no, I don't, because the world's not going to treat you differently. So TikTok, and I know I'm a contradict myself because I do social media for the podcast, but I do. I want people to watch
on our screens, Andy, late at night.
I was going to bring that up actually. Yeah, I was going to bring that up. We watch reels for 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 50 seconds, and they're doing that for 6 hours a day. So their mind is being trained to not be able to focus on anything longer than a minute. So then they're expected to sit on the floor for 20 minutes and talk about their emotions. Well, they don't even know what emotion they're feeling anymore because we're talking it to that depth of a level. I think we're talking about it too much. And I love emotions. I've got all these emotion books around me. But in schools, I think we're talking about it too much because now they're questioning how they're feeling. They're self-reflecting in a completely different way than I ever imagined. But they can't sit for longer.
Too intellectual before a certain age.
Yeah, absolutely. On a quick note around the leadership side of things, I used to be inspired by leaders who were in front of me who would make mistakes.
Yeah.
Whether they were on purpose or not, I actually felt safer being around them. When these people spoke beautifully and articulated themselves perfectly and they never stepped out of line, I'm like, fuck, I'd love to be like that person. Shit, I'm scared. I'm anxious. I'll never be like that. I'll never do it. I did some public speaking a few weeks ago. I threw a joke in there. I laughed. I made a mistake. I stared at my card a little bit too long, but I did it all on purpose in a way because I wanted them all to feel safe, that I was being real and raw and not this like, I can speak properly for an hour. Because I can't, and I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with this on the podcast too. But I felt safe when I was around a leader who just cracked here and there, and I felt safe being vulnerable to that person, but I didn't feel safe to the inspirational speaker, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that just comes down to authenticity, doesn't it? You're seeing someone's heart. You're seeing you can more easily able to connect to them because you can see yourself in them, or they're more like you. So it's a bit more normalized and real. And when people are being vulnerable or making mistakes, obviously, and acknowledging them, then that's being authentic. And we love
Totally.
authenticity. We get to see a real person. Wow, show me your heart. Great. Here's mine. How they work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you just see the people actually working. Not that I necessarily want them to work harder, I want them to enjoy it, but you see the efforts come forward more.
Yeah.
And they're actually there longer. Not that I'd put a real big law on that. You leave and you go and be with your families because they'll come back tomorrow refreshed. Isn't that what it's all about? Especially with kids or health or doctors or whatever.
Yeah.
So for you then, let's get back to you, because this is how you're leading your own way and want people to take pieces away from you. Mm-hmm. Where did this all begin for you then? Where did all this caring, connection, human-centered leadership, everything we've spoke about, where did the root cause from this come from you at the beginning? Maybe start with childhood and how you lived your life, maybe.
Yeah, so I was very blessed to have a very beautiful, loving family unit. Three of us, three kids. I'm the eldest. So I guess I had to be a bit of a nurturer and, help parents when there were changeovers between mum and dad worked hard. So dad would work during the day and mum would work at night. And I'd help look after the kids in the afternoon. But we always got, everything that we needed: soccer, dancing, fishing in the boats on the weekends, at the beach, family holidays. So really loving family unit. And then I think I definitely had some experiences of bullying during school. And I just remember being really aware of seeing other people be bullied or seeing the bad boys in school getting in trouble and getting the cane. That was when the cane was still around.
Oh, really?
And my heart was cracking.
Yeah.
What year was that? I can't remember now. It was early primary school.
I didn't realise the cane was
just about to be phased out. But it was still, he was being threatened with it and he was going to get the cane. And there was one boy at school, and there was only one boy at that point in time who had autism, and these kids were bullying him and they filled up his popper with urine, like they weed in his popper and then pretended it was fruit juice. So there's these horrible things, and I just remember always having that heart of hating seeing people fighting, hating, the bullying, and then actually experiencing it a couple of times, once in year 6, I think it was. Just the cool girls, being nasty, throwing notes, getting the class on board. I was a bit of not a teacher's pet, but, good girl. And I loved schoolwork and always did my best. And, I don't know why they were nasty the way they were, but they were. And Mum found me one day having a bit of sort of a mental breakdown, really. Like it was quite bad. Oh. And then it happened again in about year 8, going into high school. Yeah, just strangely, these girls who, my best mate and I, there is a funny story. She and I were sitting there one day and they would come and threaten to beat us up and, just picking on the new kids. It was a really big state school, about 1,000 kids, and had all the different divisions and groups. But they came to us one day and she was pale white, like pale as, and she had my friend, my best mate, she died. But anyway, she had fake tan. She'd put this Nutrimetics fake tan on because our mums were both Nutrimetics consultants, and she'd come to school orange, like an Oompa Loompa orange. And I was mortified. I saw her and I was singing, "Oh my God, we are going to get slammed today." Sure enough, anyway, that was one sort of hilarious moment. But I think meeting that, I'm aware that I never understood that level of nastiness. I've never understood that misuse of power. And so when you see that, I was awake to that as a child and I didn't understand it and it hurt me and I kind of became, affected by it. But I think in a way it's sort of, I don't know about your experience being, older, experiencing that in a workplace, but for me, it's sort of given this sense of strength now and more certainty in being kind, but also in being direct and not taking shit, and always stood up for the underdog. And and I think I can have compassion now and see, obviously, for people to do that, they're feeling pretty crappy in themselves. When people are misusing authority, they've got something to prove. There's something lacking in them that they need to assert themselves in this way to make them feel better. If they're putting someone down and harming somebody, they're tormented, they're traumatized, Oh my goodness, all kinds of things. And I can have compassion and understanding for that. I think there are some people in the world who are just pure evil incarnated. That's a different story. But yeah, seeing that and just wanting, there's always been that innate feeling of just wanting, caring for people, really. And that led into a service-based industry early on of fitness and health and, business. I got into business quite young. I was only 17 when I was part of my first business with a boyfriend at the time that actually did quite well. But again, a bit of an emotionally abusive relationship. So that ended, and then put me on this trajectory actually into personal development. That's right. When I ended that relationship, Mum entered me in a personal development course just to get some confidence back, because it had been quite a bit traumatizing in the end of that relationship, lots of threats and the personal development course was through a modelling academy, and her name was Kelly Mackey, amazing woman, and she used to teach this 8-week course in schools, special schools, co-ed schools, boys' schools, girls' schools, and all around Brisbane. And this 8-week program was, all about confidence and motivation. And so we'd have an opportunity to sit and talk about anything that helped shape them, whether it was bullying, confident, things that they were struggling with. So they'd really connect in and share deeply. We'd talk about health and nutrition for 1 week, face care, dressing for interviews for the older kids, how to walk and present yourself nicely. It's sort of like deportment plus health and fitness plus, self-development wrapped in one. It was so beautiful. And she saw something in me and asked me to teach. So I was doing that, going to schools and teaching that program. And then that led into counselling, neuro-linguistic programming, further fitness studies, travel overseas for a couple of years, working in schools. I found myself in London in extremely different school situations. One day I was doing casual work over there as a teacher aide, and it would be either in special schools or some days, £10,000 a term kind of school situation where the kids are 4 and learning, the schedule is just jam-packed from morning to afternoon. And the surrounds are beautiful. And then the next day I'd be in a school in Uxbridge, and literally the children would be arriving that would have been in the country for 1 day, can't speak English, and kids are punching teachers in the playground. And, one child arrived at school in a police car one day. It was that kind of, someone got mugged in front of me on the way to work one morning. So just seeing these extremes, and I think that was a real eye-opener actually for education, being in London and experiencing and witnessing the teachers there who were just, it's almost like they'd completely given up. And I spent, there was this one little boy the one who arrived in the police car, and I just started getting there early and spending time in the morning with him. His reading level jumped like 3 levels in a week or something ridiculous, just having that focused time. Whereas in the classroom, there's just stuff flying everywhere. They don't care. They're kind of just babysitting. So anyway, that was really eye-opening, and I think lit a little spark in me around education and just how much things need to change, and what is the purpose of this, But I didn't know I'd do anything with that, because when I returned home, it was all about yoga and well-being, and it led into running retreats for, women, and having a yoga studio and coaching clients. And that was sort of my life and having my own children. And then through having my own children and taking them to this beautiful local play group that was Steiner inspired, and then everything in my soul just kind of started tingling, and I knew that was the next
step,
something that I had to be part of helping.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't have known that it would have led to where it did.
Yeah. Well, that's the beautiful part of not trying to control the outcome, because if we stop trying to control the outcome, some amazing things can happen, right? Join us tomorrow to hear more from today's incredible guests and learn valuable insights to help you lead your own way. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you then.